Hi, welcome everybody. Today's lesson is on solving word problems with unit analysis. We've been working with unit analysis for a while, so it should be familiar to you. We're just going to add some extra tips so that you can solve the problem if it's given to you in a word problem. So get out a piece of paper, and if you need to, pause the video and write all these steps down. You might want to include them on your 3x5 card or memorize them. And come back, get a calculator too. Here are the 6 steps. First step, what are you trying to find? What are the units in your answer going to be? 2, what are you given? Are there any equivalencies given in the word problem? And you're going to start with the non-equivalence and put it over 1. Step 3, do you need to look up anything? Do we need to find any equivalencies that are not given, or do you need to know some off the top of your head? 4, set up so unwanted units cancel and you obtain the desired units. 5, do the math and round the answer to the correct significant figures and don't forget your units. And 6, which is a step I often forget, but don't forget it, always check your work. So let's try it with a pretty simple problem. How many pounds are in 755 grams? So let's go back to the steps. The first step is, what are we trying to find? What are the units in the answer going to be? Well, when you read a word problem, they're going to have phrases like how many, or calculate the, or determine the, or how far, or how much, or what is. These are usually pretty easy to find. So this word problem says how many pounds. So pounds is what we're looking for. So I'm going to put that equals, and the abbreviation for pounds is LB. So I'm going to put it to the right of the equal sign. And the reason I start here is because any good problem, you want to know where you're going. And then you figure out how to get there. So step 1, very simple, equals pounds. What about step 2? What are you given? Are you given any equivalencies in the problem? Let's look. How many pounds in 750 grams? No, I'm not giving any equivalencies. I'm just given one number. And so I'm going to put that one number over the number 1. If I was given an equivalence, I would not start with that because you never know which of the equivalents to put on the top and which to put on the bottom. So here I am converting 755 grams to pounds. So that's step 2. So now I know where I'm going to pounds, and I know where I'm starting. And now I have to figure out how am I going to get there. I'm trying to find pounds, and I'm given grams. How do I get there? So now I'm up to step 3. Do you need to look up anything? Any equivalencies needed? Well, yes, I'm going to need to look up something. I'm going to have to look up how grams are related to pounds. I don't expect you to know this off your top of your head, so I looked it up. There are 454 grams equals 1 pound. So I'm going to use this equivalency to help me get my answer. So now I'm at step 4. Set up the problem so unwanted unit cancel and you obtain the desired units. So first I have to decide what my unwanted units are. I don't want grams, and my desired units are pounds. So I need to cancel out grams and get pounds. So now I take my equivalence and decide what goes on the top and what goes on the bottom of the fraction. If I want to get rid of grams, grams is going to have to go on the bottom of the next fraction. So I set it up like this. Grams cancel, and I get to pounds. So I've done step 4. Step 5, do the math, and then round your answer to the correct significant figures. And don't forget to include your units. I already put the units there, so I shouldn't forget them. So here we have, I take out my calculator, 755 divided by 454. And that gives me a long number, like 1.662996 pounds. But I have to round to the correct sig fig, so let's look at these numbers. So 755 has 3 significant figures. I don't worry about this one. This is 1 pound, so I don't worry about this one, but this is the measured value. So 454 has 3 significant figures, so 3 here and 3 here gives me 3 in my answer, so I just drop off this 2996. And the last step is to check your work. I often forget this, but you can save yourself a lot of points on a test if you go back and check your work. First, I check the units. Do grams cancel? Did I want pounds? Yes. Then I'm going to check my numbers, and sometimes I just gut check the numbers. So I started off with a lot of grams, and I ended up with very little pounds. Does that make sense? Yes, because there are a lot of grams and very little pounds. So the numbers make sense. So, very good. Let's do another one, a little bit harder than that one. Let's do one more example. Given that there are 8.96 grams per milliliter for copper, determine the volume in liters that 1,874 grams of copper would occupy. So once again, I'm going through these 6 steps. I'm not going to read them to you again, but make sure you have them down. And if you do them, each step actually is very easy. So at the end, if you're patient, you'll get the right answer. So step 1, what are the units going to be in the answer? Well, I look for kind of keywords like here, determine the volume in liters. So I'm going to try to find the volume in liters. So I put that down so I know where I'm going. The next step, what are you given? Are there any equivalencies? Start with the non-equivalence and put it over 1. So here I'm given 2 sets of information. I am given that there are 8.96 grams per milliliter. That's one of those key words that you're going to use to realize that this is an equivalence. We had a whole video on that. 8.96 grams equals 1 milliliter. At least it does for copper. And I'm given 1,874 grams. That's not an equivalence, that's just our starting point. So don't start with the equivalence, because now I don't know which of these I would put on top. I'm going to start with the number that's by itself that I actually am going to be converting. So I'm going to start with 1,874 grams, and I'm going to put it over the number 1. So I'm going from grams to liters. So step 3, do I need to look up anything else? Well, if I look at what I'm given grams, and I'm given grams per milliliter, but I wanted to find liters. I have no mention of liters in what I have given. So this is expected that you would know this, that there are 1,000 milliliters in 1 liter. So I'm going to have to look that up. So you can plan your path as you go along. I'm going to go from grams, and then I'm going to go grams to milliliters, and then I need to get to liters, so then I'm going to go from milliliters to liters. So now, step 4, now we're going to actually set up that path that I just described. We want to cancel the unwanted units, and we want to obtain the desired units. So I want to cancel out the grams, and I want to get to liters. I can't do it just with one fraction. I'm going to have more than one fraction. So which one am I going to use first? I'm going to use 8.96 grams equals 1 milliliter. And you have to decide where you're going to put the grams, on the top or the bottom. So hopefully this is what you thought. You're going to put this on the bottom. 1874 grams, 8.96 grams goes on the bottom, and the grams will cancel, and I have milliliters. If you did not realize at the beginning that you needed to look up 1,000 milliliters to liters and you stopped here, when you got to step 6, I would hope you realized you cancel out grams and you got milliliters, but you wanted liters. So hopefully that tells you you need one more conversion factor. So let's do the last conversion factor. Now I have to get rid of milliliters and get liters. So where does the milliliters go? On the top or the bottom? Yep, hopefully you got it right. The 1,000 milliliters goes on the bottom, the liters go on the top. Grams cancel, milliliters cancel, and I'm left with liters, and that's just what I want. So now we get out our calculators and we're going to do the math. 1,874 divided by 8.96 and then divided again by 1,000. Notice I skipped all these ones because multiplying or dividing by 1 just gets me the same number. So what does that give me? 0.20915 liters. But I've got to round it to the correct sig figs. How many sig figs? There are 4 here. I skip all these ones. 8.96 has 3. And this is a definition, so I don't include any of these numbers. So I have 4 here and 3 here, which means I can only have 3 in my answer. So 0.209 liters. So now we're going to check our answer. This will save you points if you do this. First, I'm going to check my units. My grams canceled. My milliliters canceled. I'm left with liters. Did I want liters? Yes, I did. Now I'm going to check the number. I started out with a lot of grams, and I ended up with very little liters. Does that make sense? Well, if I just look at the next step, if I start with grams, I'm going to end up with very little milliliters. And since milliliters are even smaller than liters, I'm going to end up with very little amount of liters. So the number does make sense. So you got it. You did it. If you have any questions, ask them in class. I'm sure you're going to be an expert in unit analysis. See you later. Thanks for listening.